Hello and welcome back to my channel, everybody. We're going to be exploring all about Earth's mysteries and the mysteries of the cosmos. And today I have a really special episode for you because I have a wonderful guest. Today I'm joined by Fran, who is a functional health practitioner, and we're going to be talking about quantum biology and our intimate link to the cosmos, our ability to regenerate ourselves, and all the potential we have through new discoveries around health and how we can apply them. So, welcome, Fran. Thank you for being here.
Hello, Faye. What a treat it is to have a chat with you this afternoon, this sunny day.
I'm delighted to talk to you because we originally connected over geomancy, but you have a wonderful practice, and that's why I really couldn't wait to share it with everybody. So, do you want to tell people a little bit about yourself, what you do, and what your practice is all about, and we can take it from there.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you. So I'm a functional health practitioner. The modality I use is functional medicine, but I don't like using the word medicine because I think it infers all sorts of things that I don't do. I'm very holistic in my approach. And I love, Faye, how you say when you look at earth energies, you see geometric shapes and geometric patterns. When I look at people, I see geometric shapes and I see geometric patterns. And I, through my own kind of journey of menopause hitting me like a truck and various kind of work soul disconnects that sort of left me feeling really sort of depressed and blaming myself for, frankly, what a whole load of patriarchal nonsense that was going on. I had to really pick myself up. I really struggled with depression. And that whole kind of empty nesting, what is the point of me? I walked away from my job and really struggled. And then I sort of discovered by accident that gluten played a big role in my depression. And I thought, oh, this is really interesting. If that one food, or aspect of a food can have such a big impact on my sense of well-being, I wonder what else is going on and what other food impacts people. So I studied nutrition, and that was really, really interesting. And then I really got into this whole metabolic system, how our body manages and produces energy. And it's totally fascinating. And it would sort of tied in with my experience of menopause, because things happen at menopause which change our metabolic function. And so I was looking into the hormones, the neurotransmitters, how energy is produced in our cells and the mitochondria. And the more I studied this process, it's called cellular respiration, which is how we create energy in the body. The more I could visualize these patterns, these like really complex, interconnected, beautiful, complex patterns that seem to run through everybody and everything, frankly. And gradually, we've all been through a little bit of an awakening process and this lovely kind of breadcrumbs that one thing leads us to another, leads to another. And I started to meditate. And I started to hear about this sort of the new human as being a light crystalline body. And I had this mental picture of kind of, us becoming like clunky, crystals. Angular clunkety clunkety clonk. And I could, how's that going to work? And anyway, carried on with my research. And the more I looked into how we produce energy and the absolute magic that goes on in the mitochondria, we have millions of mitochondria inside our cells, and which are like little energy factories. They work like literally like little hydro power plants, and they produce something. There's something called a Krebs cycle. There's a process that certain nutrients that we absorb go through, and the output at the end is something called ATP. And ATP, which is the life force as far as medical science knows. And ATP, if we were to sit absolutely stock solid still on a sofa, we would produce our own body weight of ATP a day. If somebody runs a marathon, they produce over a ton of ATP. So don't let anyone tell me that that's got anything to do with eating porridge for breakfast. It just doesn't add up. The amount of energy that our bodies can create does not equate to this fuel in, energy out, body is a machine model.
Yeah, calories in, expending energy. It doesn't add up, does it, to a lot
It's
of
nonsense.
people? Yeah.
Yeah. And so this reductionist idea that our bodies operate mechanistically,
Yeah.
and that therefore we need to go to a place where they tinker away and fix things, like taking a car to the garage, or that our health is outside of us because we are constantly reacting to things as opposed to creating things, is really absolutely not the case. So looking at this whole business of ATP and how is it produced and so on, you do a bit of reading, you do a bit of research, you come across some interesting people. And I thought to myself, okay, crystals, well, our bones are crystal, calcium is crystal. So that's interesting. Minerals, that we need minerals. Most of the people I work with are really short on minerals, so I'm kind of constantly recommending magnesium and things like that. Magnesium, that's a crystal. B vitamins, people are super stressed. B vitamins, so I looked at thiamine, niacin, riboflavin, peroxide, all crystals.
Crystals.
Okay, what about fatty acids? Essential crystals. Amino acids in protein, crystals. Or they all have crystalline structures. So I thought, aha, cellulose, that we get in vegetables, that's not going to be crystalline. Flipping is crystals. So vegetables are crystalline in structure, and they also have an amorphous element to them. It's like a hydrogel. Oh, so hydrogel, we go down that tunnel. Does this all make sense, or am I kind of
It does make sense. We go down these rabbit holes, don't we, of finding out. I went down very similar things, when I became fascinated by salt, to do with something to do with me, and I became fascinated then by all these crystals in food. And I was like, there is so much that we intake that is crystalline, everything from properties of air and water and all our food, everything has these crystalline properties to it. And it's staggering, absolutely staggering when you go down these rabbit holes.
Yeah, absolutely fascinating. And we know that crystals vibrate, they have a frequency. And we know that sound and light has an impact on crystals. This is why a lot of us like to have crystals around. And we know that sound therapy heals us. Most people have been to a sound bath or something similar, or enjoyed a concert, or listened to something that's uplifted them. So we know sound heals. We know that light, because we look at beautiful things and we're impacted by it. When we look at something, it's light coming into our brains.
Yes.
Photons. So we know that light and sound impact us. So then I kind of came across this absolutely amazing scientist. He actually sadly died in 2018, called Albert Fritz Popp, who's a French scientist, who discovered this concept of biophotonic light, which is I could measure and identify the light that is emitted by human beings and by the individual cells in human beings. And then his work, I need to just, was followed up again by some French scientists who wanted to understand the effect of sound on cells. And they were able to identify, using very complex machinery. We're going back, mind you, we're going back to the 80s and 90s. So this is not new knowledge. This is suppressed knowledge, pretty much. And they discovered that each of our cells has its own song and vibrates in a very particular way. And if you think about it, it makes absolute sense, because that's why our liver cells stay as liver cells, and we don't have blobs of liver growing elsewhere.
Yes.
Why
they all have their own frequency, don't they? Otherwise, we wouldn't have separate organs and a body with all its functioning. We'd just be this bit of a mess.
Exactly. Exactly. And so the coherence of those vibrations. So coherence just means everything vibrating together.
Yeah.
Is what holds what we see as a physical hard reality. It's what holds all the objects together. So, so they discovered that that cells have a sound, and they did absolutely astonishing things. Like they worked out the sound of certain medications that dilate blood vessels or constrict blood vessels, and they played the sound to, it was actually a guinea pig's heart, poor little guinea pig, but anyway, they played these sounds to the guinea pig, and depending on the sound, the vessels constricted or dilated according. So just the sound of the molecule that would, if taken as a medicine, have an impact on the body. Just the sound of it had an impact on the body. I find that completely astonishing.
I find that fascinating. I mean, I know that work in sound and healing is evolving, hasn't it, with sound and cancer. But like you say, it's this vibrational frequency, and it's a very similar thing, isn't it, to how you know, herbal remedies work, that they don't actually come into contact with the actual substance. If you're taking a batch flower remedy, the water you're taking has never come into contact probably with the original remedy, but the vibration frequency is held within the water. So we can use water as a carrier, we can use sound as a carrier. And I think, you know, this is tapping into a really unique way of looking at the universe and our bodies, and that everything, as you say, everything is vibration. Our whole body is held together by what we think, really by the vibration that we create to create our body. But it's a phenomenal process when
It is.
you have to turn your understanding of physical reality on its head, really, don't you?
You do, and just kind of suspend disbelief, because
Yeah.
look, we know that computers work with you know, binary code. It's like on-off messages. That's all it
Yeah.
is, on-off. And we experience a kind of whole alternative reality through our phones, through our televisions, which all operate, all the algorithms that we hear about operate off this on-off
Binary code. Yeah.
binary code. And if you look at the 0-point field, so this is the 0-point field, is the to try and create an absolute vacuum where the minimum amount of energy possible exists. And energy is another word for vibration. So, and quantum physicists call it oscillation. So if particles are oscillating, there's energy present. And what happens when you get to the 0-point field is you've got like little quanta of energy, that often called protons, that ping in and out of existence.
Yes.
And this is like yes, no, this is like yes, no binary code, constantly pinging out. This is what,
Is it a wave or a particle, isn't it?
whether it's a wave or a particle, that's string theory, all of that, it
Yeah.
changes. So this is, again, going back to how we produce energy in the body. There's something called quantum tunneling, which is that, and it's used in energy production, it's used in enzyme function in the body, where things pass through where they should not be able to pass through, because they change from being a particle into a wave, or from a wave into a particle. So yeah, quantum tunneling, big thing. And yeah, so so we know we can experience a reality on the basis of binary code, but what about if, I don't know, but what about if the whole of reality was just this binary flashing in and out of existence? And then you think about things like the yin yang symbol, which ancient traditions, they knew this stuff. You know, if you look at the yin yang symbol, it's particles and contrast coming back.
It's particles going in and out, because they sort of do that, don't they, as they go in and out.
Exactly.
And it's particle physics, really, isn't it?
I know.
And it does the yin yang symbol. And I know, because if we talk about, you know, if we talk about the fractal patterns, like you see fractal patterns and I see fractal patterns in everything. You know, I can look at a person or look at a tree and I see a fractal pattern, and then it's like going into this pattern, you know, like the trips people have when you take, you know, mind-altering substances, or you can watch videos, create fractal videos on YouTube. But if I look at somebody's chakra, I see that pattern, and then I go in to that chakra as a tunnel. And that pattern and that form gives me a feel for that whole area of their body, or I can see patterns in the landscape. And what you're doing is, like I say, you've got this physical reality, which is where things come into form, physical pattern, physical matter. But then you've got this whole other reality, which is an energetic reality, which is the raw energy before it comes sort of solidifies, I suppose, through habit and belief into physical reality. And if we can work with this side, the energy side, then we can absolutely transform the matter side. And I think, that's true of people, it's true of nature and the environment, it's true of our ideas, things we want to build. And I think this kind of way of looking at the universe, it's just, I think our ancestors knew all about this. And I think we have a whole lost technology that we're only starting to reclaim now. We've gone sort of coming full circle. But the scope for health, for personal health, I think is absolutely astronomical.
Well,
Because we
it's
can literally we become almost like bionic people if we can tap into this skill. We could recreate ourselves.
but we already have the skill and we are already doing it, but we're doing it at a kind of
Unconsciously. Yeah.
unconsciously because and we know we've all been taught about photosynthesis, how plants convert light into energy and nutrients, and how that happens is absolutely, this is like quantum tunneling as well. It's absolutely
Yeah.
astonishing. And we know that we respond to light, and we know that our society is becoming really quite ill. I mean, ever since the last 40, 50 years, all sorts of chronic diseases, non-communicable diseases have skyrocketed. And at the same time, we have been really distancing ourselves from nature. And the fact is we can't, because we are nature, but we're as much nature as a tree or a rock or a cow. But this modern society has created food which does not have any light in it. And when we eat natural food, it has a frequency that our body can hear and understand and knows exactly what to do with and how to process it. When we're eating manufactured food that is created under fluorescent lights in horrible noisy atmospheres, away from birdsong and sunlight.
Yeah, and it's not handled by humans either, is it, to a great degree? It's put into big machines, and
Yes.
there's no natural, that's not a natural way to, we're supposed to make food with our hands. We're supposed to either, I always say this bluntly, we're supposed to either club it to death, pick it off a tree, or dig it up.
Yeah.
That is where our food is supposed to come from.
Yeah.
For all the goods and bads of that. But something that has not had, that's been, in modern farming, it's a fantastic thing to feed everybody, but we don't cut the grain by hand. It goes through a machine, it goes to a massive mill, it gets put in a bag, it turns up at a processing plant, the bag gets cut open and tipped into another funnel, and then out the end of that eventually comes a pizza. Like you say, that none of those component parts have ever been handled. And then it just gets shipped to a supermarket shelf. That every bit of life force that nature had put into that has been totally wiped out. And then when you eat it, I know from personal experience, I couldn't touch that. I'd be ill for a week. Yet, get my own flour from the local mill, which I do, make my own pizza, sit it in the sun to prove it, get the vegetables and peppers that I have grown, put them on. No problem whatsoever.
Different. It's
It's a
different.
totally different way of producing something and giving energy to our body. Yeah.
Exactly. And when we eat this sort of made up food, our body can't read it. It's like saying, is this food? Isn't this food? Oh, maybe it's a toxin. And so it triggers a stress response in the body. And we all know that stress is really bad for us. But so on a kind of minute by minute basis, we're kind of cutting ourselves off from a natural way of being, or we are being cut off. I don't want to be kind of too conspiratorial, but
But we are, yeah.
And you mentioned fractal patterns and these sort of energy light codes, or however you want to describe them. And if you think about cities, why are they made like this sort of brutalist, concrete grey? I think some people in Spain did some research, and you'll be staggered by this, Faye, I know. When there are trees planted in a street, everyone feels happier. More birds, it's not as hot. And we naturally respond to fractal power. You know, sunsets and waves and leaves and you know, the ripples of water. We respond to these because they are part of who we are. We're
Yeah,
connected
we're
to all
made
of
of the
it.
same stardust that makes all things, aren't we? And we have evolved out of that. You know, we are very much part of it. And as you say, when we surround ourselves with concrete boxes, with artificial light, living outside of the cycles of natural day and night, it's a very alien environment, and it takes us away from the very essence of what makes us human.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think, you know, over the time we are seeing a sicker and sicker society in many ways.
Mm.
And yeah, done by design, yeah, or just lack of awareness, ignorance, who knows? Deliberately, who knows? It's impossible to say really. But
Well,
yeah, I think
there's been this long history of if it's not right in front of your face and and you can't touch it, it doesn't really exist.
mm,
Um, which we just all know is not true. I mean, you know, we know that certain people make us feel happy, certain situations make us feel sad. You know, this is, emotions are not something that you can feel and
yeah,
touch with your senses. I mean, you could feel them with your body, your mind, but you know, we are multi-dimensional beings. And
absolutely.
if somebody wanted to disconnect us from our power, a very good way of doing that might be to plug us into machines, get us to eat machine-made food, make us live in boxes, and tell us that we're all different and that we should hate each other. So, yeah, I mean, we are nature. We are as much a part of the cosmos as the stars. We are, as you said, stardust. And it's that magic that we hold as human beings that is inherent in every single cell in our bodies.
Mm,
It holds that magic. It's like a code that is locked into our DNA, and we each of us have the power to unlock it, to
yes,
release that power. And
yes.
just imagine how wonderful the world would be if we were all free to do that, or felt able to do that, or had felt confident enough to do that.
Absolutely. The world would be a different place. I think, like you say, we've become disenfranchised from what is, in essence, our own individual power, because we have the power to do this. And I know, as you say, in recent times, you know, I think it's quite shocking how society has changed. You know, I mean, when I was a kid, you know, 70s and 80s, but we won't go there. You know, but I mean, I spent part of my time in England, part of my time in very rural Ireland, which was, oh God, like 50 years behind England. You know, everybody had an acre of ground. Everybody, we used to walk up to the farmers' kids and get our milk fresh out the cow, unpasteurized, nothing, you know. And everybody grew their own food and everybody was out all the time. And it really, I think, you know, over my lifetime, that decline from nature. And I look at it, you know, my own kids desperately, you know, not desperately, we do get outside. I've always pushed that on them. But, you know, you see so many people around who, like I said, just live this phone, shop, out of a bottle, out of a packet life. And it's like, they're almost like, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way because it's gone into with an awareness, but there's like you can see them, they're a shadow of what they could be.
Mm,
The cognitive functioning, the ability to be present and alive.
mm,
It's like a half-life.
mm.
And I think, God, that's so sad because there's all these people out there that could potentially had all, you know, had all this potential, not potentially had all this potential, but have all this potential. And yet it's like there's like a vampire sucking them dry, and it is the modern world. And
It's
it's
numbing, yeah.
yeah, it's shocking. Absolutely. You
Mm,
know, I think you know, we have to wake up and we have to turn things around
mm.
because I think, you know, it sounds quite pessimistic, but the future's not bright if we don't.
Well, this is, Faye, this is like a really important point. This is our superpower that we have as humans, and it's the power of choice.
Mm,
And you know, there are theories that we are put here specifically to, in order to be able to play with that power of choice and free
absolutely.
will.
Yeah.
And the choices that we make, every single little choice we make, is a vote for the kind of world we want to have. and just choosing, do I want to react to that person who's obviously having a shitty day, or can I just, am I going to control my own energy? You know, do I need to kind of jump into the mire with them, or am I going to choose not to? That's a choice. Am I going to choose to respect the absolute wonder and genius of you know, my body, your body, everybody's body? Are we going to respect that and nurture that and look after it in this loving way that, you know, our ancestors looked after their bodies and respected everybody else's body? You know, these are choices, and we get to make these choices. Like, I don't know, I can't remember the statistic, but we make choices something like 30,000 times a day, and more than that. And these are all these are like little timeline opportunities, that we make a choice, we make a choice, we make a choice, we make a choice, and that takes us down our path. And, you know, this feeling of disconnection and disempowerment, you know, I work with some people who are really quite poorly, and you know, they've struggled with all sorts of things. So I really don't want to be in the least bit judgmental about this, because everybody works within the framework and the knowledge base that they have, and everybody tries to do the best they can. But I think for us that are kind of able to question a little bit, and I think most people listening to this podcast are probably pushing the envelope in one way or another, we can see that there is just so much possibility. Have you come across Nassim Haramein?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Very much so. I think he had an online course a few years ago, which I did as well. And
Oh.
yeah, brilliant work. Brilliant work. I think that is really pushing the envelope about what we
Oh,
perceive as possible, and
yeah.
so much good stuff that's coming out of his work at the moment. It's incredible.
Yeah. I went up in the autumn. He had a kind of workshopy thing, where he spoke for 8 hours, and with like mathematical equations that were like, you know, big as the side of the stage. And I didn't understand 99% of what he was saying, because it was all quantum physics. But I was absolutely gripped. I was like on the edge of my seat, because it just felt like such a big, important stuff. And he believes that we're all connected through these little quanta, these little packets of energy, and that they each have little black holes at the center of the energy, which are quantum tunnels,
Yes.
that connect us to different timelines, different dimensions. And this is what's going on in our bodies, in this constant flux, that we actually have control over if we allow ourselves to do it. I think that's the exciting thing.
I think that's tremendously exciting. I think, you know, I think we forget, or the modern world encourages us to forget, that, you know, sovereignty is a quality of our soul, and power is a quality of our soul. There's something we're born with, and it's not something that can be taken away from us. We just forget how to use it. We give power, you know, we don't claim our sovereignty because we don't want to, you know, upset other people, or told that somebody knows better than us. And we don't, you know, power can never be taken from us, but we often have a poor relationship with our own power, you know, because people may have exercised power over us and things like that. So we think, oh, I don't want to be powerful. But powerful doesn't mean control. It just means powerful in our choices, and knowing what we want and how we want to live and who we want to live with, and what our values are as a person. And I think when we're disconnected from that essence, you know, of who am I? What did I come here to do? Where does my power lie? What are my values? A lot of our ill health stems from that, because we're not living as our whole energetic being came here to live. So then we're operating with one or two hands that we've actually effectively often tied behind our own backs.
Absolutely.
And then, you know, and we don't mean to do it. It's not a deliberate thing, but we, you know, like you say, we're only equipped with the knowledge that we got. We make the best decisions we can make in the time. But so often they're fear-based and avoidance-based, aren't they? We don't want to upset somebody, or oh, if I do that, that might happen. And we kind of lose that sense of, it's okay, I'm all powerful, because no matter what happens, I can handle it.
Yeah.
And then we don't recognize that, and we seek comfort in other things. So it might be, food or alcohol, or some other unhealthy habit, or we let other people decide for us, and from there then all our woes our woes begin, don't they? And they'll start off in the energetic, in the emotional realm kind of thing, until, I mean, we can't really separate the body from our energy, but sooner or later that energy not functioning as it should, then something in our body, where
Mm.
it's that crossover state between energy and form, that's sort of something breaks down. And I think that's when we kind of cease to function correctly.
Absolutely. So if we don't deal with our feelings, they express themselves physically.
Physically. Yeah.
I don't know whether this is true, but it's a kind of idea that's kind of forming in my head, which is almost that light creates sound, which creates shape. Like, we've seen the what's it called, sinographics or something,
Yeah.
where the sound waves create patterns in water, and
Yeah.
um,
Sound.
so sound creates pattern, which creates form, and so allowing that process to happen, and to, it's
Yeah.
obviously a two-way street, and for the form to inform the light, because
Yeah.
we're like sort of giant antenna, and
Yeah.
what we put out there is just as important as
We
what we
both
receive.
receive and emit. Yeah.
Um, and I know from my own experience of depression, which was, depression is the most hideous thing. It all wrapped in with self-esteem. You've this sense of worthlessness, of not being good enough or not being something enough. Um, taking up too much space, not taking up enough space. It's constantly, chipping away at our sense of who we really are.
Mm.
And it's so interesting how, for me, it was the kind of meditation that kind of was my little access point. How you suddenly think, wow, that's not what we're here for. We're not here to beat ourselves up and to bully ourselves into tears,
No.
and then, or to numb those feelings with video games or whatever, food or drink, as you mentioned. We're here to learn and expand and to pass through the pain
Yeah.
in order to expand, and it's scary. That's why
Yeah.
that's why it's difficult.
Yeah, because life is scary, isn't it? Life is not easy, and we know that when we come. But we're only going to be our best selves when we move through all those blocks, because they encourage us to grow and learn the things we need to grow to become the best versions of ourselves. It's like, if your path to fulfillment is in front of you, there are 1,001 hurdles that you have to climb over to get. Like an athlete, you have to develop the strength and resilience to
Yeah.
deal with the things you need to deal with to get to the other end. So all
Yeah.
our lessons are quite personal. But yes, but they're there for us to overcome. We can't sidestep it, because all we're going to do is face another hurdle, and it's going to be 4 inches taller than the last one, because we tried to sidestep. So our problems only, I always say our problems are like, dogs. They come to start with, they'll come little dogs yapping at our ankles, and we'll just kick them away. Then they'll come at slightly bigger, more aggressive dogs, and we'll push them away with a stick, until finally we're faced with a rabid bull mastiff, that we have to deal with it. And it's much easier to deal with these things the first time they crop up than it is to keep pushing them away. But it's really interesting what you say about light. Yes, because when I look at people's auras, much like earth energy, it's almost formed by the bending of light. There's something there, and light bends into these shapes. It bends into our chakras. So, the light in our chakras, it is emitted by our body, but it's also drawn in from the outside.
Yeah.
The same as earth energy. We talk about, in earth energy, I'll often talk about toroids and geospirals. But how I see them is that the light bends both into them to create them, and is emitted by them. So I think, light and sound, they're all just frequencies, aren't they? We have to recognize that frequency, like I say, this vibration, this coherence, is everything. And I think if we understood what our own coherence is, hello, like my cat does, when we understand our own, because obviously cats are, all omnipresent, aren't they? So if we understand what our own frequency is, and the different frequencies of body, like you say, with sound or whatever we choose to do, I think we recognize quicker when something's off. We might not be able to solve it instantly. We may still have a lesson to go through. but at least we recognize there's an active process for us to engage in rather
Mm.
than to surrender to it and go, God, this is it. But you're absolutely right. We didn't come here to berate ourselves and hate ourselves. We came to treat ourselves with kindness and patience and parent ourselves. You
Mm.
know, okay, you're going to find this difficult today, Faye, but you know, you've got this, you know, put on your best whatever and
Mm.
go for it. And that's how we need to talk to ourselves. But so often, you know, I've done it. We've all done it, haven't we? Berated ourselves for, oh, what did you do that for? You absolute, you know, and it's just, and then you hear yourself doing it and you're like, what? I wouldn't talk to anybody else like that. So why am I talking to myself like that? You know,
Yeah.
and as we say, words are so important because they are programming, don't they? They program this program that we run on our subconscious program that doesn't question it. If we
Mm.
tell ourselves we're crap, our subconscious mind just says, okay, I'm crap. It doesn't say,
Mm.
no, I'm not. It doesn't stick up for us.
Mm.
So then we run on that program. And, you know, there's a whole thing in that of how when we think about words, how our neurons work, how the light works, the sound of our words, even in our own head, has that frequency,
Mm.
which, as I said, must then impact on
Our
all
body.
this quantum tunneling that we're
Well, our body,
programming ourselves through our own thoughts, as you say.
exactly. Our body listens to every single thought and every
Yeah.
single word we say, and
Yeah.
it listens and it responds accordingly. There's huge research that's been done into placebos and
They
nocebos.
fascinate me.
Absolutely amazing. So people, uh, so most medications only work like 1 or 2% better than a placebo. I mean, honestly, the effectiveness of most medication, not all, but most medications is minimal. And if people are in a placebo trial, more often than not, the placebo works as well, if not better, than the
Yeah.
actual medication, even when people are told that they're taking a placebo. And just being part of this kind of shamanic process of, you know, white coats and having to go to a hospital and people listening to your symptoms is in itself healing. So
And I think probably many people know that all placebos work quite well anyway, don't they? So
yeah,
they do.
exactly. So, but that belief that something is going to work, and it works.
Yeah.
And I, you know, there's the absolutely amazing book by Lynn McTaggart, The Field.
Yes, oh, one of my
Um,
favorites. Yeah.
yeah, so good. And and she goes through all this research that's been done, all these things that, you know, just to show that our ability to create our own reality and our experience is infinite. And uh, and if we were left to our own devices, what we would create would be something very loving and very inclusive and community based and entirely natural. But people don't make money out of that, is the thing. and
Yes,
um, and our world sadly is kind of completely driven by profit. And
it
you know,
is. Yeah.
one of the in my corporate life, I worked in FMCG marketing, which is fast moving consumer goods and mostly food products. So I worked for some real kind of gamekeeper turned poacher, whichever way around it goes. And so Pepsi, Nestle, Mars were all clients of mine. And you know, then they're not making food to make to do you favors. They're making foods that are going to make them lots of money. And
Yeah.
so they're looking for to create food that is craveable, to create food that is hyper palatable, so that we keep on eating it.
Yeah.
Um,
I think people as well, there's a little point about cravings. I think, you know, people don't realize how subtle cravings can be as well. People think of cravings as in, oh, I've got to have something, don't they?
mm,
And then people don't think about oh, I'll have them because I like them is a craving.
yeah,
But a lot of those, oh, I eat them just because they're nice and I like them, is
mm,
actually a form of craving because
craving.
most
Yeah,
of the time the stuff that we're eating is when you have those feelings is junk, you know. Well, not all the time, you know.
yeah,
Mine are raspberries is my craving, especially this time of year. But
you,
but you know,
you
so
like
often
them.
people just say, well, I just eat it because I like it. And it's like actually that's driven by your taste bud being educated that that
Mm,
thing is extremely palatable. And often you're emotionally eating, you know, I fancy some of them because why? Because you're
Yeah.
tired, because you're stressed, because you're not getting enough done today. And there's all these little, like you say, these little triggers in our
Mhm.
subconscious programming that
But
these false foods actually tap into, don't
they
they?
tap into it. And you talked about, giving our power away. You want to eat raspberries, you want to eat chocolate cake, absolutely go ahead, but you make that decision.
Yeah.
Don't let Mr. Kipling or Betty Crocker or whoever it is.
No. If I want to make a chocolate cake, I make my own chocolate cake.
Yes, exactly, and enjoy it.
And then
And
I don't feel so guilty. Well, I don't feel guilty at
yeah,
all because I know exactly what I put into it and how much I can eat. But yeah, and I think that's another thing, isn't it? It's guilt around food as well, which is a big thing.
mm,
If it's like if you're going to eat something, make it, eat it, and enjoy every mouthful of it, and then go, right, I'm just not going to
totally,
do that very often.
totally. Yeah, no, absolutely, 100%. That sort of hamster wheel that we get, stuck in, that kind of guilt and shame, and um, is so and it's kind of hoisted onto us. It's like we have to look like this, we have to be like this, we have to.
Yeah,
Um, we don't have to do anything. We just have to.
we just have to take care of
Be.
ourselves, is what we have to do. And
Take care of ourselves and the people around us, and that's
yeah.
and
And I
that's
think we have,
easy.
once we can tap into this incredible potential, and that is the trick, though, isn't it? It's consciously tapping into it because so much of these things are unconscious and they're implicit, or we can't see them. And we're
Mm,
so geared in modern world for this taste, touch, smell, hear. Like you say, if we can't engage our five senses with it, it doesn't exist. And I think it's this tapping into this subconscious program. It's so important for our mental health, our physical health, our ability to succeed. And I think almost regardless of what the practice is, whether it's functional health medicine or I do it through geomancy and earth energy, so long as we have a practice that says, I recognize that most of my world is just a constructed facade. And the real nitty gritty happens behind that. And I've got to find a way of breaking through that wall. It can be tarot, it can be whatever, it can be, I don't know, bungee jumping that pushes you to the moment where you think, I'm alive. But whatever it is, I think we all have to have a practice. And I think that's one of the things that's very much missing from modern world. And in a way, it's the decline of faith and religion. Because at least, for good or bad, the church, has its good and its bad points. But I think since we've moved away from some faith and a
mm,
practice, church got us to church, we confessed our sins, we got it off our chest so we wouldn't feel guilty. We recognized that all the food was produced, we said grace. Grace, blessing our food has a tremendous impact, doesn't it? And I think moving away somehow, it's that loss of faith of however we've expressed it, whether we're in a church or just a faith practice. I
mm,
think that has not served us as well
mm,
because when you can see people that have, whether they're ardent, I know people that are ardent churchgoers, and I know people that are ardent spiritual people. I know people that never, never touch it. And it's the one that doesn't touch anything that, oh, it just is. The physical world is all there is. I look at their energy structure and they're the one that's crippled,
mm,
and it's not, a shutting down is probably a better way to describe it. The person who's, lights candles and chants, and the person who goes to church and prays, they're both much better in their energy form. So it
mm.
doesn't really seem to matter it doesn't matter what we do, but we have to have some faith and purpose. And
I agree, and I think there's a lot to be said for the energy of curiosity as well. So whether
mm,
it's tarot or
yeah,
candles or flower essences
the
or
quest is the thing,
the
isn't
quest, exactly.
it?
And experiment. Does this work for me? Does that work for me? And that sort of energy of curiosity is so liberating because you're not locking yourself into anything in particular.
Yeah,
Do I feel better if I do this? Yeah, that works.
yeah,
What about if I have this? Oh no, it doesn't feel so good then. And then you just move forward on that basis,
yeah.
just tuning in.
It's
And
more, I think it's more not childish, but it's childlike, isn't that? When we're children, we go, "Oh, I'll
mm,
try that,"
yeah,
and I'll give that a whirl. And we do things that now, you sort of do it without thought. I think as a child because you haven't had so many knocks, have you?
yeah.
And you know, and it's about sort of getting that sort of childlike curiosity back, like you say about, well, how do I feel? You know, and with children it's much more instinctual. Like I say, we're
Yeah.
noticing when you know, when I've had a stressful day, what foods am I drawn to? How do they make me feel? You know, am I drawn to things that out of habit that aren't good, that then actually make me feel worse? So then I feel more of a failure and I
Yeah.
go into one of these downward spirals. And it's just noticing, but if I just break that pattern and do that instead,
Mm.
then, you know, and it doesn't mean we have to go without, you know, I mean, I found that, you know, personally, when I wanted a treat, you know, I've got a local dairy farm, and if I go and think I really want something nice, like I said, you know, fruit with a blob of local dairy cream on doesn't bother me at all. But if I ate something manufactured, I would have probably, you know, be ill for days. So it's finding the things that
Mm.
are more natural based that still
Yeah.
give you that
The joy, well, you know,
nurturance, but you
yes.
don't then have to feel so awful about it. You don't have to feel
Yeah, yeah,
guilty
yeah.
about it. You can
That's
enjoy it, as we said, back to the guilt thing again.
that's right. Well, there's, you know, I get quite for ages I didn't like to tell people that I worked in health, because there's this sort of slightly holier than thou pious you know, I go to the gym every day kind of you know, look at me thing about that, because there's a lot of nonsense in the health and
There's a
wellness
bit of
world
a
as well.
cult of fitness, I would
Oh,
describe it
as well,
as.
and that's all very masculine performative
Yeah, look
nonsense.
at me
You
in the
know,
gym with this,
yeah.
and to a degree to the women as well. You know, I've got to have this perfect bum, and it's like, yeah,
No, well, that's not what it's about.
feeling healthy.
It's about, yeah, it's about like it's connecting with life force. So the food that has life force in it can only do you good,
Yeah.
even if it's cream
Yeah,
or
even if it's great, like I said, it's from my dairy cows up the
yeah,
road, and I can go and
mm,
get it from them and
yeah,
go scoop,
mm,
and you know,
fabulous.
it fills me with joy, and
Yeah,
then, like you say, it doesn't bother me. But if I went, you know, don't get the sugar-filled, mass-produced squirty cream out of a can, because
yeah,
then you'll feel rubbish.
exactly.
So yeah,
That's
it's
exactly it.
if it's produced, I always like to say, if it's produced out there by nature and we don't mess around with it, as
Mm,
long as it's consumable,
yeah,
probably more than once, because you know there's a lot of toadstools and mushrooms that are consumable, but only once. So long as it's consumable more than once, we're
mm,
okay with it, aren't we? You know,
yeah,
and we can just learn by tweaking and feeling. How do I feel? How did I react to that? Did you
yeah,
know how was my digestion? Or how's my skin? Or whatever little, because we've all got sort of unique weaknesses, haven't we? That'll
mm,
tell. You know,
yeah.
that we all know our thing, but if
Our intuition about our health is actually stronger than we realize.
yeah, it is.
And the thing is, just because something is edible doesn't mean it's a food. I think that's the
Yeah,
that's
I mean, I mean, I don't know about you, but you walk around a supermarket and there's really only so many aisles I go up.
mm.
There's so many aisles I would never even go down. I don't think I've walked down a biscuit or crisp aisle or anything like that for a long time.
But
It's
we think, you see, we go into a supermarket and there are these shelves after shelf after shelf of brightly packaged foods, and we think, oh, we've got so much choice. We don't realize that those foods are primarily made out of only 6 ingredients. It's like wheat, dairy, corn, high fructose corn syrup, soy, and seed oils. Are just kind of uh, regenerated, and they all
different
boil
form.
down into different grey slurries and then reformulated into things, and then put in
Yeah,
colourful packages to make them appetizing. And beyond that, so 6 ingredients, give or take, and there are 10 companies that actually own all the major branded food
there are.
companies.
Yeah, I used to work in supermarket and retail, and you know that everything comes off, and you think, oh, all those products there are all from
One
Unilever
company.
and all
Yeah,
those kind of things, aren't they? You
yeah,
know, and then it puts you just kind of put you off a bit when you realise where they come from.
yeah,
But yeah,
yeah,
I mean, I think if you restrict yourself, like you say, to the fruit and veg, the meat and dairy aisle, and that's, you know, and you know, home baking if you want flour and stuff, if you can't get it locally milled and things, but you don't need anything else. Anything else you can make. You know, I always say if you want a biscuit, you know, I'll make some. It takes 10 minutes.
yeah.
You know, eat
Well,
them one
there was a very interesting finding that they did it's called the Women's Health Study, was done in the States, and it's been going on since the late 70s. And they found that if people had a bag of sugar in their larder, it had a positive impact on their longevity. And they went, hang on a minute, that doesn't make sense. We know sugar's bad for you. Anyway, what it transpired is people who had the bag of sugar made their own biscuits and cakes, And so they were in control of what they were consuming. So yes, they were having cakes and biscuits, but limited by how they, how often they could bake them. And they were not ingesting all the
It's the
emulsifiers
preservatives
and
and the
additives
trans
and
fats and everything else that you make your
yeah,
own biscuits. It's flour, butter, sugar, salt, and whatever, what in various combinations. But that's it. And if you buy
yeah,
organic butter and organic flour and organic sugar, at least you are in control then of the of much more of what you're eating.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So my sort of message to all my, the wonderful people that I get to work with is power and choice. And it's just like the accelerator and the
yeah,
clutch pedal in the car. You get by playing with those, you get to control and explore and understand so much more about how your body connects into the world around it and what serves it and what doesn't.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. That's,
and
that's, I mean,
remembering it's
there's
all energy.
It's all
Everything is
energy.
energy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's so many depths you can go into from this. Like you say, changing, the nature of the family, women being out at work, not being able to cook. There's been so many changes in society that, have their pros, but also have their cons. And I think it's finding that balancing act. But the one thing we can do, like you say, is can take control of what we eat
Yeah.
and listening to our own body. So where can people find out more about you? Where can they connect with you if they want to find out more about what you do, or they've just looked at you and gone, that's the woman for me?
Well, I would love to have a chat with people who kind of resonate. My website is realhealthandwellness.com. Real health and wellness, all one word. Not terribly imaginative, but hey ho, it works. And that explains a little bit about me and how you can contact me to book in for. I have a sort of free chat with everybody first because I don't work with everybody. They've got to be open to what I have to say and have to offer. More importantly,
Yeah.
so thank you very much. Thank you
It's
for.
been lovely to talk to you. Thank you. I'm sure there's so many offshoots of this conversation that we could have as well. So
It's a
yeah,
huge topic.
it's a huge topic. Yeah. Well, maybe we'll have you back, and progress on this further. So thank you very much for joining me. It has been a delight to talk to you. And yeah, if anybody has any obviously questions they want, put them to Fran or send them to me, and I will pass them on. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Faye. It's been brilliant, fascinating as always.